warm back up this afternoon, and finally going to start to get into some of those warmer temperatures that the Southwest and the plains have been able to enjoy over the weekend. Right now 35 in New York, 38 in Philadelphia. It's currently 43 degrees into Washington, D.C., but things are going to warm up. Take a look. We have over 190 million people that are going to be looking at temperatures above their seasonal average, and we're talking stretching from California all the way up to Maine. There will be some pockets in between that are looking at average or slightly below average highs. Notice, however, most of that region is actually going to be where some of the rain showers are expected for today. Here we have that dominating high pressure into the south. Now here's what's going to happen. That warm surge of air is actually going to spread a little bit farther north. When it does, it's going to allow for some of these other regions that haven't yet been able to enjoy that warm temperatures. They're finally going to be able to do that. However, even though the cold air retreats back to Canada, it's temporary. That cold air does come back by the time we get to the middle of the week, especially for around the Great Lakes region and into the Northeast. That's where you're really going to see that next big cold snap. Here's a look at what we're talking about. Again, this is where all that cold air is going to come back to. You're going to have to go pretty far south or pretty far west to be able to enjoy some of those warmer temperatures again once we get to, say, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of this week. But again, we talked about a cool start to Northeast, but look, we're going to top out at 50 today for Boston and New York, topping out at 57 for Washington, D.C. And so let's look at that setup that we're going to be experiencing as we go later on into the week. Now we have this low that's out into the Pacific Ocean. It's going to gradually make its way across the U.S., bringing those strong jet stream winds down to the south of it. It's got a lot of energy with it. Now here's the thing. It will break apart a little bit across the Rockies, and then it will reemerge across the plains. As it does so, it's really going to be able to intensify. It's got plenty of moisture that will be coming up from the Gulf of Mexico, fueling this system as it drives off to the east. That means for a lot of this region right here, this is where we have the potential for severe weather. Now again, most of this threat begins on Thursday and will carry into the day on Friday. So here's a look at what we start with on Thursday. Again, stretching from North Platte down all the way through Lubbock. Then as those isolated severe storms begin to progress, we'll start to notice that threat push east and also a little bit south as well, going from North Platte now stretching just to the west of San Antonio as we push into Thursday night. And then it really pushes into that San Antonio region and also potentially into Dallas as we go even more forward into the forecast around Friday. So here now we're talking Kansas City, including that Dallas region down towards just to maybe the northern suburbs of Houston. If you live in Houston proper, watch this closely because we always talk about how the forecast can change. So that could begin to shift a little bit. Shreveport, Louisiana, also going to be under the gun for severe weather as we go into Friday. And then by Friday night, now we're starting to talk even pushing over towards Jackson and Little Rock. Memphis, again, going to be one of those close cities to keep an eye on it for the same reason. This system could speed up a little bit. It could slow down, so it may or may not also impact you as we push into Friday night. And everybody north of that, again, still has the potential to get some pretty significant rain out of this. By Saturday, again, the system still holding its own as it pushes off to the east. But now places like Nashville stretching down, including Birmingham into New Orleans, going to have the big threat for severe weather. Again, any of the cities along the edge of this, even if you don't see yourself in the red color, again, keep a close eye because we're now talking 5-6 days out for this storm. A lot can change in that time frame as we push into the rest of the weekend. And then again, here's a look at the potential for that severe weather on Thursday. Spotty damaging winds, also some hail, and yes, the potential for some tornado area, getting some temperatures perhaps above normal for a change. Right now, though, again, it's still pretty chilly out there in many of these regions. You've got a little bit of a breeze kind of in some of these locations right here. 38 right now in Philadelphia. It is 43 in Washington, D.C. Still about 25 in Burlington, Vermont. But again, these temperatures are expected to warm up. Around 190 million people with temperatures that are above average for the day today. That has really spread from the last couple of days. Folks in the Great Lakes region and also the Northeast are really kind of trapped in that cold dome of air. We'll top out at 53 today in Pittsburgh, just barely below 60 in Washington, D.C. and getting into the mid-50s in New York City. Tomorrow, again, warming for New York, warming for Washington, D.C. Even Burlington starting to get some of those warmer temperatures, albeit not quite as warm as maybe perhaps they would like to be. Washington, D.C., again, the average high is 57. We'll be awfully close to that today, getting well above that for tomorrow. But look at the low temperatures. The average low is 39. We're going to be 44 tonight. So again, it's not just the afternoon high temperatures, it's those overnight low temperatures that are also going to be warm. That changes, however, by Thursday when when that colder air comes in, that may be a concern for some of the cherry blossom trees that are still trying to go through their blossoming process. Here's a look at Boston. Again, average high is 46. We're going to get up to 57 by the time we get to Tuesday. Overnight low temperatures again. Right now we would normally hover around that freezing mark. We're talking 40 tonight for that overnight low temperature. And New York, again, same thing. 51 is the average. We'll be right at that today, but much warmer as we go into tomorrow with a high temperature right around 57 degrees. 36 is where we drop off on Wednesday, though, so you can start to see that colder air beginning to slide back in. To be warm. Much of the southeast is going to start to enjoy some of those warmer temperatures that are pushing east from the southern plains region. Now, when you think of spring, you think of spring break. You think of Florida beaches. You think of awesome locations. One of those awesome locations for spring break is Hilton Head, South Carolina. And our very own Jen Carfagno is there live. And Jen, you were up on top of the lighthouse giving us spectacular views. Now you're a little bit lower, although we can see the lighthouse behind you. Again, just talk about beautiful weather for you. This really has our attention towards the end of the week. So let's take a look at the system as it is right now. Again, you can start to see some showers rolling in portions of Northern California and also into Oregon. Again, it's going to be a soggy day for places like Portland, also into Medford. Now this low, again, it's going to be very slow moving, especially the first couple of days. We've got the increase in jet stream flow that's going to arrive, as well as a big moisture source for this. So again, California, Oregon, and also into Washington expected to get some decent rains out of this. Not that they necessarily need any more rain at this point. Periods of rain, but also the snow into some of the higher elevations, especially around the Rockies as this thing continues to trek further off to the east. So Wednesday, notice it's still just now starting to really kind of cross into regions of the West Coast. So that's what we mean about it's being very, very slow moving. Here's a look at today. Again, expecting rain stretching all the way from Seattle down through San Francisco and again towards the Big Sur area. Then it's going to begin to push a little bit further east as we go into tomorrow. So notice by tomorrow how much more rain begins to spread over towards Reno and Boise, up around Coeur d'Alene, and also into Spokane by tomorrow. Now Wednesday, again, you start to see that moisture source. Some of it starts to break apart across the Rockies as usual, but we still expect to have quite a bit of rain chance along the West Coast Wednesday and even as we go into Thursday. And don't forget the snow into some of the higher elevations. Overall, we're talking about a potential decent 1 to 2 inches, but some areas could see as much as 3 to 5 inches. Let's look at the threat that we're going to be dealing with. Again, that very energetic disturbance is going to push east. It kind of falls apart a little bit over the Rockies, reemerges back over the plains. When it does, it's going to have a lot of those very strong jet stream winds along with it, not to mention the moisture source that will be coming in from the Gulf of Mexico. You mix a lot of that together and you have perfect ingredients for a severe weather setup. Again, here's a look at that low as it continues to push east. So by Thursday, this is where we're going to be looking at the potential for some severe storms. We're talking Kansas City, Oklahoma City, Dallas. Thursday, again, this is going to be that main line from North Platte down to Lubbock. Then by Thursday night begins to push a little bit farther east, now including Wichita, also just maybe around that Oklahoma City area. But we talk about this a lot. When you're talking 3, 4, 5 days out, a lot of it can change. So even if you don't see yourself in the red shaded area for this day, maybe you're just outside of it, you still need to pay close attention because a lot of things can change and shift in the coming days. By Friday, again, we're pushing a little bit farther east, just outside of Little Rock and including places like Shreveport. By Friday night, now we're really in the heart of Little Rock, and again, Memphis and Jackson getting close. But again, I mentioned you want to stay vigilant on this because now we're starting to talk about 5 days out for this particular storm, and a lot can change in that time frame. By Saturday, really now starting to move into portions of the deep south. All of these days, we have the potential for damaging winds, some small hail, and yes, the threat for tornadoes is going to be very apparent in the storm. Now, the dry line will form out ahead of that front, and you're going to have some pretty strong winds associated with this system again as it kind of pushes through the high plains. Again, as that disturbance again pushes across the plains, reemerges as that point, this is where the main threat for severe weather is going to be on Thursday. Again, we talked about damaging winds, also the potential for spotty hail, and yes, the chance for a tornado. This is what we're looking at for Torcon. Central Nebraska and Kansas on Thursday, we're looking at a Torcon of 3 for that day. We also know that we have the moisture source that's going to be coming up from the Gulf, the low-level jet stream winds. So Friday, that's why this begins to shift just a little bit off to the east. This is going to be our target zone for Friday for the severe weather. Same threats, really. We're still talking damaging winds. We're still talking hail. We're still talking the threat for tornadoes. And right here, you can see a torque on of 3